Welcome everybody back to the After Dark Show. I'm Don Rogers. I'm really happy to have my guest back tonight. She's been on the show one other time. She is an author. She is a spiritual coach. She is the founder of the the Redu Spiritual Wellness Center. Wow, I had this figured out and I just screwed it all up. Redu Spiritual Wellness Center right here in Alberta. It's actually pretty much in my backyard in Drumheller. And she is also a Reiki instructor. So my guest tonight is Sonya Roy. And Sonya, thank you so much for coming back. I had such a lovely conversation with you last time. I just wanted to speak to you again. And then I started exploring your website. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to do something here. Since I just mentioned your website, I do have banners.
Oh, look at that.
Boom. There's your website, and we'll just keep that up the whole show. It's
right.
SonyaRoy. And it is, I'm going to encourage everybody to go to this because I got to watch the first episode of her talks section of this website. And there is so much valuable information on this website. I could not possibly explain it all in like 10 shows. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the laws of karma and the evolution of the soul, which was her very first talk on her website. And it's almost 2 hours long, and it's absolutely fascinating. It's hard to get somebody with attention deficit disorder to sit still for 2 hours, but I not only sat still, I took notes. So, well,
maybe that's the trick, right? Making you take notes keeps your attention going and keeps you present.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say that they tried watching they're listening to the podcast, and they're like, I can't because I keep having to stop walking or running to make notes, and I listen to yours at home. I'm like, that's like works, right?
I could understand that. There's certain ones, like I have a 9-to-5 job, which was actually really funny. When we were talking today, I had literally just driven past the Redu Spiritual Wellness Center. I have stopped in Drumheller, and it was just like, and then I think it was less than 5 minutes later, my phone goes ping, and it's Sonya. It was just this synchronicity.
Well, in order for synchronicity to work, people have to get their face out of their phone once in a while and look around and see the hints that are being given to us by the universe, right? So whether it's a flight of a bird or a sign or, someone actually waving at you, sometimes I just find it so weird because I travel alone a lot. And, I look around and everybody's in their phone. You used to be able to make eye contact, and no matter where you were, someone would talk to you. But now you got to pull them away from their phone first in order to notice there's other people around that you could have a live conversation with,
Oh, absolutely. And what I found fascinating is, like I said, I was only a few minutes down the road, but when I drove past the center, I was like, I wonder if she got my message. And then I'm not kidding, ping, I'm like, get the out of here. No way. Right. And I use speech to text while I'm driving, so I'm like, blah, 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 and it reads it back to me. I'm like, that is just nuts. And I just started laughing while we were having our conversation. I was like, I can't believe that just happened. I drove past where you are, thought, I wonder if she got my message, and you replied. So I was just like, that's just wild.
Well, actually, this happens to me a lot. My students will think about me, and then I'll call them, and I said, what's up? They're like, well, you're calling me. I said, well, actually, you kind of butt dialed your spirit, connection to me. Well, I was thinking about you. I said, I know. So what can I do to help? Because it keeps resonating in my head, your name, and it keeps bouncing and I can't focus. So let's get out of your way. What's your question? What's going on? And then I can focus on, what I'm trying to accomplish today.
I love that. I have that connection with a few people, but that was just wild today. You and I have only spoken a few times, so definitely on the same energetic wavelength, I would think.
Absolutely. I just actually taught a light language class at the beginning of March, and the two students in the classroom were explain how it works, right? So the idea is that you can have a very small antenna. You know, if you go back to the 80s, even 90s, I think, you know, you had these antenna you had to work with for the TV, and then you'd put aluminum foil to try and enhance the capacity of the antennas to grab information, right? But eventually what happens is your antenna just grows, right? So it becomes clearer and clearer for you to capture messages coming from, you know, any direction that kind of mentions you, kind of thing. So yeah.
That's really cool. And I totally think that's the way it works. I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, everybody go check out the website because there is what is there, like 6 seasons of talks on there now? And
No, they're 8 or 9 actually.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how far I've even got to look. But the very first one actually caught my attention, and it was the laws of karma. And you started that episode with the concept of the soul and what the evolution of the soul is. So I was wondering if you could touch on that while we get started.
Wow. Okay, so that's not a small question. The beginning of all souls all the souls started at the same time. So if we would scientifically try to link it to an event, it would be like a big bang, because creator, source, whatever you want to call it, at first he was just a thought. He didn't have substance, right? And that's the same thing in all the religions in all the worlds. All belief system start with something that has no form but it has a thought, and out of that thought he wants to have form, and so he then merges from a very masculine to a very feminine. This is our understanding of what's happening, right? Because it's the woman who gives birth. So therefore, the feminine aspect of creator becomes for form. And out of this form, he creates everything. And so he also creates our souls. Now, if you can imagine, if we were to surround the sun, right, all the souls, and we're only as big as a speck of dust, we wouldn't cover a third of the sun, right? Even if 7 billion people's souls are all there, we wouldn't be able to cover the sun. So everything that exists has been created at that moment, and we're all bathing in this light of love, which is the third aspect of creator. So you're constantly at peace, you're constantly being loved, and you're constantly giving back gratitude to creator for being so happy and so loved, right? But what happens is there's no growth either. And then came the ability, creator said, I'll give you opportunities to grow, because I would like, just like anybody who has children wants their children to grow, right? We don't want them to stay dependent, and we don't want them to stay needing us to spoon feed them, right? Eventually you want to kick them out of the nest, you want your life back. Right? So one of those opportunities was for the souls to enter the third dimension on planet Earth. Now, there's been a few trials that occurred, and this would be considered the fourth trial. And so we've been destroyed by fire, we've been destroyed by water. That would be the Great Flood, right? So now we are on our fourth stage. And it's very interesting because what's happening is the planet is also growing because it's a conscious being, and she's about to shift. So we're supposed to shift with her. So that's why there's so many births on the planet right now, because a lot of the souls want their momentum to go and shift into the fifth dimension with the planet. And so as we're experiencing life, we are living in duality. So there's black, there's white, there's hot, there's cold, there's, everything is you have or you have not kind of thing. And the souls are here to make choices, and that's how they grow. So they'll grow with the choices of choosing divine will. They'll grow with being kind, being compassionate, being loving. And those who are not making those choices continue to perpetrate karma. And that's where karma comes in, right? So we're here, and it's the reason why I've done the talk on karma is because people misunderstand karma. You know, they say that karma will get you back, karma will come around, and it's not quite how it works. Karma is not a punishment. Karma is an ability for us to reproduce an incident and this time make the right choice. So I'll give you an example. In a past life, I was a girl collecting herbs and making healing potions, if you will, for arthritis or fevers and things like that. And my mother in the present life was a inquisitor. Now, do you know what an inquisitor is? Yes?
Not offhand, no.
Okay, this is important because a lot of people get lost at this point. An inquisitor is a member of the church who is charged by the Pope to find witches and devil worshippers all over Europe and even in the States, and would be entitled to torture and use whatever means possible for someone to admit they've been in leagues with the devil, and therefore their soul be purified. However, in order to get that done, the only way you could purify somebody's soul apparently is to burn them at the stake. And there were multiple different tests to, yes. So you're being purified, but you're also dead. But there are other ways that people would figure out if someone was a witch, and it was to hang them from a tree. So if they lived, they were a witch. Obviously, everybody died. They would throw them off a cliff. So if she flew, she was a witch. All of them died. If you drown a witch, she won't drown. Well, obviously, all these people drown, right? So everybody's like, oh, well, she wasn't a witch, right? Boo-hoo, she's gone. Let's take all her stuff. Let's take all her land. Let's take her husband, whatever, right? And that oftentimes, all these witches' stories, that's what the basis of them were, right? It was, you would tell the church that this woman's a witch, and then eventually would die. So here I am. I'm being interrogated by this inquisitor, who in this present day is my mother. And she, it's not her first rodeo. And she says, well, for sure, we're going to gain a confession out of you. And I said, well, it's not going to happen. I'd rather die than confess I was in league with the devil, because I was not. So, go ahead, torture me if you will. And she realized that, geez, maybe this one I'm not going to be able to break. Meanwhile, my father in his life was my jailer in the past life. And I had helped his family. And so he knows I'm not a witch. It's just a bunch of plants and a bunch of handed down knowledge from, ancestral generation kind of thing. And I said, speak up for me, say something, right? And he refused. He was a coward and he was afraid and didn't stand up. And so I ended up getting decapitated as a punishment for not saying I was from, obviously I was very, very evil for not admitting to be in leagues with the devil. And I served as an example. But meanwhile, as I'm being dragged from my jail cell all the way to being my head cut off, I am cursing, swearing, and being very mean and very, not very kind human being. And I created karma, right? Because out of their fear and ignorance is how they were acting, but I refused to be understanding. After all, they killed me, right? So I'm having a hard time dealing with it, so I'm not kind about it. However, that karma is now following me. If you can imagine a big backpack, well, that incident goes into the backpack, which eventually needs to be handled and dealt with. Now, the beauty of reincarnation, now for this to work, you have to believe in reincarnation, which, so many people on Earth do believe in. So maybe, I don't know about North America, because there's not as much Buddhism and not as much as, we're very influenced by Christianity here. But anyway, you get another chance. And that's what karma is about. It's about learning your lesson, to be kind, to be forgiving, that's what it's all about. So in a Christian example, Jesus showed us the way by being very mistreated and at the end saying, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing and they don't know who they're dealing with. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. right? That was our example to follow, kind of thing. And so I am born again, but there's no more inquisitors, there's no more witches burned at the stake, so we can't reproduce something exactly the same. However, energetically, my mother was still a torturer. She was very violent and abused us. And my father was still a coward who didn't stand up to her and protected us. So energetically, it's the same. We're all in the same position. And I still have the option to be very mad about all this and swearing and putting them down and cursing them and whatever else. However, when I was about 18, I had a conversation with my dad about the whole thing, and that anger came to the surface, and I was like, wait, hang on a second. This is not what I'm trying to achieve here. I'm actually trying to restore a daughter-father relationship. This is my goal of this conversation. Now, admittedly, he says he's a coward and finds a whole bunch of excuses why, he didn't stand up to my mom and didn't protect us. And I realize he's just as broken as I am. So we're just going to let bygones be bygones. And I said to my dad, you know what? How about we start fresh? I don't live in the house anymore. She's not doing her stuff to me anymore. And let's find ways to build this relationship. And that's when my father broke down and cried and apologized. And we had a magnificent relationship onwards until he passed away, right? And now it wasn't so easy with my mother because she refused to admit that she did anything wrong. So I really had to work on a completely different way of forgiveness. That was basically my goal for 12 years. How do you forgive someone who has been terrible to you and did horrible things that are not right and in any way, shape, or form admissible or, okay? And that's led me to understand true forgiveness. And through that's why it's important to understand karma. Karma is not, okay, well, I get screwed, so he will get screwed. No, you got screwed because you didn't pay attention. You got screwed because you let someone else have your power. You got screwed for so many reasons. Where's your responsibility in that? And that's what karma is about. Karma is about owning what you've done in this life or another and taking responsibility. Taking responsibility for your choices, your actions, because you didn't get where you are today on your own. Sure, you have a past, you have wounds, but you got here for a lot of choices. Now, I worked for the RCMP tour. I did a whole career, and nobody said when they were 5 years old they wanted to be prostitutes or drug dealers when they grew up. Sure, there's things that happen that led them to think that was the only way out for them or the only option for them. But our job, mainly my job anyway, is to make people realize that there's so many more options. You just didn't know they existed. So let's go over these options and let's course correct so that you have a better life and you don't let whatever's happened in your past be what is forcing you into the trenches now. Does that answer your question?
It actually does, and it leads into the other one. I actually have several more, but something Kyla, you know her as Kyla Spinja, was wondering as well is like in the case of a soul contract or karmic, that when you're no longer speaking to the person or no longer living, how do you settle that karma or soul contract? Like, I know Dolores Cannon had you can literally just speak to them in your mind. You can end that soul contract. Like, look, this didn't work out. We tried our best. This isn't going to work. But with karma, does it work like that? Or can you settle it through something similar?
Ish. So, when you do your soul contract, which is everybody has one, and you prepare this before coming to Earth. So my contract was to resolve this karma between my mother and my father, and they were both together in a relationship where we could definitely work this out, right? The contract is an agreement that you are willing to fulfill. So my contract was to restore the karma I created with hatred and end up in, breaking all this hatred and finding forgiveness. That they're alive or not doesn't matter. the idea is that I have to understand my life lesson. So in for instance, let's say the person who was abusive to you has passed away. And then you realize through forgiveness that you're forgiving them and you're understanding your lesson. You may, as a soul, because we can't talk from a human's perspective. You have to talk from a soul's perspective. The soul wants everything to be perfect. It doesn't want to half-ass learn the lesson or half-ass do the job. It wants to do it perfectly. So it might actually volunteer to come back with the same person and reiterate this contract, because what you've learned in the past life, you bring with you into the next one. And so now that you know how to forgive, you'll relive this experience and this time give them forgiveness. So it's not a black or white kind of solution. On the other hand, if the person who was abusing you is it's dangerous for you to communicate with them, there's instances where it's just not appropriate to get in touch with these people who were abusers. And then there's something that I teach during my Akashic record class is how to communicate at a soul level and come to an agreement. Now, a contract is also, it's like a marriage. It takes two people for it to work, right? So if you're married to someone who's not in it anymore, doesn't love you anymore, it doesn't matter how much work you're going to do. It's not going to affect this other person or make your marriage better, because the other person needs to work it. With karma, the ability that you have, as long as you understand your lesson, you're releasing the chains of this karma. And so you're free to be without attachment. And that's a very Buddhist thing that is explained very well by Buddha. We have to understand that we're all connected, right? So if you see someone in pain and you could do something about it and you don't, you're hurting yourself as much as you're hurting this person, because we're all connected. So every time you get an opportunity to do something good is an opportunity for you to get brownie points on the karma bar, right? So, and at the same time, sometimes you're able to learn without having to be a part of the issue. And that's what detachment's about, is becoming more of a witness to a situation and going, oh, what's going on here? Oh, I see. This person's trying to get energy and this one's refusing to give. So now they're having a big fit trying to get energy and attention, and I'm not getting involved. Or if you're a little bit more advanced in Reiki or energy healing, you can send this person the energy they need voluntarily without them stealing it from anybody else around them, which usually makes them a lot more cooperative and ready to listen to what you have to say, because their energy needs have been satisfied. So there's many ways.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that makes a lot of sense, because that's actually something I've been looking into a lot, is the emotional frequency that we emit during different moods and temperaments, and like when we're angry, how we affect other people. And like, it really is on a molecular level. My energy affects everybody in the room that I come to, or, vice versa. Their energy affects us. And I don't think that's something most people understand. So well, I love how you worded it.
Because this should be explained to you in kindergarten. Because we're literally made of energy, right? So the soul is the quantum energy, and we're made of this energy, and we're all connecting through this energy. So either we're connecting through, like trees talk to each other through their roots, because all their roots touch. But what we don't seem to understand is that when we are close enough, let's say if you go like this, like a ballerina, this is pretty much your aura circle. That's how big it is, right? It goes all around you and like an egg. Now, anybody coming inside that egg, or the eggs touching, there's an energy sharing that occurs. So a responsible person would be actually meditating every morning to set their energy and to say to the universe, this is what I'm doing today. So I need the focus, or I need the assistance to help me be very effective while I'm trying to achieve these things today. then you go about your day consciously awake of the fact that if you're angry, you're spreading your anger on everyone around you that comes within your circle, or even through the telephone or through email, right? You're affecting a whole bunch of other people. And then you wonder why you have a terrible day. Well, you've been terrible to everyone. So now you've put everybody in a bad mood, and everybody is now reacting to that first spec that you started the day with. And then, again, an awakened, responsible person would then in the evening sit down and say, how did my day go today? And ask themselves, did I do my best today? Because your best will vary from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Saturday, right? I just lost my aunt, who's like a mom to me, just less than a month ago. So my best is 30% of my normal best, right? It's a little slow, but I can't stop completely. So I kind of have these moments where I'm like, well, okay, I'm done, right? So, which is normal, right? But I'm aware of that. And I'm giving myself that. And I did on my channel, I did say, I'm sorry, I missed two of my regular podcasts, and I just can't. I can't focus long enough to talk for 90 minutes and give you a ton of information. It's just not going to happen. So checking in with ourselves, asking, did we do our best today? Is there something I should apologize for? That, maybe people are going, oh, that's fine. And you're like, well, at least I acknowledge that my behavior wasn't the best, and I'm sorry for being rude or, short or whatever, right? So if everybody would do that, we would quickly shift into an environment where everybody is kind. The fact that you can apologize shouldn't give you the right to be horrible in the first place.
Yeah.
To me, that's...
And you just hit on a question that you actually made me think of while I was watching your show.
Okay.
The whole emotional frequency thing and how it's contagious and our moods are contagious. I personally think that shift in frequency on the emotional level is going to happen to so many people. It's kind of like the 100 monkey effect. And a large group of us are just going to begin to resonate at that emotional frequency altogether and just sort of find each other. My question is, though, do you think we'll become imperceivable to people of a lower vibration?
That is the theory that James Redfield advanced, that as we raise our frequency, we become out of phase with the low vibration. Now, I'm going to explain this in simple terms. So you get raised in a ghetto, and all you have is in your mind, you believe that you won't, if you make it to 20, you're lucky. So why put any effort in your education? Why not live the life until you eventually get shot? Because that's what's going to happen. That's your reality in the ghetto. And so this is a true experiment they did in California, and they took some of these students and they took them out. And they started to realize, oh, not everybody lives in fear of being shot. Oh, if I get good grades, I could get out of here and go study and get a job and not be poor anymore. Oh, and right, this is the awakening. Now, these students get out of the ghetto, and they're no longer part of that low vibration. Their pattern of thinking is completely changed, and they work with different people, and they have no dealings with this community, which was very small. But, let's say 16 square blocks, right? This world doesn't touch them anymore, doesn't affect them anymore, doesn't reach them anymore. Now, the ghetto still exists, and there's still people trapped there, but they moved on. So as we move on and we move forward, the idea is that our own bodies won't be so dense anymore. We become lighter and lighter. And so our body pretty much. Yeah. So our body is transforming into a crystalline light body. And that's happened for some people already. And that's where we're heading. But in order to be there, you really have to shift, and you have to forgive, and you have to deal with all your darkness and all your heaviness from this life or from a past life. But yeah, It's doable. You just got to put some time and effort into it. Now, Spinja was saying if they're trying to steal it anyway, turn it around and send it out of them, out for them to accept. Should they choose, they will accept it. They just don't know it comes from you. So they're being fed. It's a lot like a big whale in the ocean. As long as it opens its mouth, it's going to swallow plankton. It doesn't wonder if it's blue plankton or green plankton. It doesn't care. As long as it's getting the plankton, it's happy. When you there's a lot of energy modalities that exist. For me, the easiest way to learn how to exchange energy is through Reiki, because it's easy to learn and the concepts are very simple. But you can stream energy to whoever needs it. Now, what are they going to do with that energy? They can't do anything bad with it, but at the very least, they'll, for a short while, stop stealing it from other people. So I remember I have a student, she was driving in the car with her husband who has a very short fuse, and he went off again, and she tried this. So she opened her Reiki and just gave him Reiki in the car, and all of a sudden, she said it took like 30 seconds, and he shut up. And he smiled at me, and he just kept driving. So she's like, it works. He didn't ask for it. He didn't particularly know he wanted it. She just figured, oh, you need energy. Here it is. And it was great. So eventually, after a few of those events, he's like, what are you doing? She's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, every time I'm pissed off, all of a sudden I start feeling warm and fuzzy and, I feel better. And so then the door was open, and then she explained, and now he's taking his own Reiki classes. Because he's like, oh, okay, so I don't need to be like this. There's a way for me to get my energy and be happy like you. And she is quite peaceful and quite quiet and very lovely to be around. So, and she's noticed it changed, because there's different ways in which a person will steal energy from you. The interrogator, the person who continuously asks you a question and wants your attention and is just, those are the people that you're not even finished answering one question. They're already asking more questions, they're just trying to keep you, and you end up being very frustrated, but they're very happy because that's how they're getting the energy. There's the angry people, the yelling people, when you get yelled at, if you don't win the argument, usually what happens, you feel down, right? You feel it. Well, that's how they took that energy. The other way is those who are aloof. The silent treatment, the people who walk away and you have to run after them and ask them, what's wrong? What can I do? And well, anything that is attention grabbing in a passive or aggressive way is attention. And this attention is you giving them energy. And the last one is the victim. They tell you their pity story over and over and over again. To grab your attention and again to grab energy. So when you encounter these different people, these different modalities, if you can understand, oh, they just want energy, you just open up the gate, give them energy, and they stop. Right? And then you say, can we have a real conversation? Or do you actually need to be here? Or did you just come here for energy? Right? So.
That is a wonderful way to deal with people like that. Just on a footnote, I cannot thank you enough for teaching my wife Reiki, because shortly thereafter, I did have a gallbladder issue, and I actually had it removed, and I had some terrible, terrible gas, and, well, she made me fart. Like, she actually moved a gas bubble. I felt it, and I went, oh, as she was doing something behind me. I wasn't even watching. And she's like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just about. And she's like, and then I passed gas. And she's like, that's nuts. It literally relieved my physical pain in the moment.
Absolutely. So yeah. There's the main purpose of Reiki is, first of all, to challenge your own energy. So if you can get the energy that you need, you don't need to steal it from anybody else, right? The second thing is that you can use that energy to help someone else whose energy is stuck or there's an issue, and move that along for them. And eventually you can share that energy with people who are in need. Now, most people in a Reiki circumstances, let's say they come, they lay on the table, and that's the agreement. They're there for for them to receive energy. But you can do this anywhere. So I always travel, and it's very quiet. Normally things are very positive because I continuously emanate this energy around me. So it's just happy. people say they love coming to my house because they feel so good here. So
Even driving past, there's a vibe. I got to be honest. So, where did I just lose my spot? Do you think that we're being distracted or deceived in some cases from starting or even completing our soul contracts or missions? Like,
absolutely,
there's a lot of distraction in the modern age.
that there's always been distractions, always. But it's I don't know, it's more blatant today because everybody has a phone, and on their phone there's TV, there's games, there's, you know, it's a full load of distraction in that little tiny device, right? I personally turn my phone off, so you can only get a hold of me 3 times a day, between 9 and 10, between 1 and 2, which is my lunch, and between usually 5 and 6. And after that, the phone's turned off and it's put away. Otherwise, I can't get anything else done, right? It keeps, you know, beeping from Facebook. It keeps beeping from email. It's constantly being distracted from the work that I'm actually trying to do. Never mind my spiritual work, right? We're just talking about my actual work. And so it's funny because I have people that I've hired and they're on their phone. I'm like, okay, so either you leave and I'll pay you for up to now, or you put your phone away if you want to stay here. That's my rule. So if you come to my house, I don't want to see your phone. If you can't come here and be without your phone for an hour or two, then go home and play on your phone. But have enough respect for me when you're here with me to be with me, right? So that's my rule. Because it's easy to waste time on all the gadgets. So if you don't have enough time in a day to say, meditate and pray and cook healthy food, or, you know, take care of your health, go for a walk outside, then you should start tracking just how much time are you spending on TV or on your phone. And then you're going to realize and now it's easy because your phone can actually tell you how much time you spend on different apps. So you don't even have to make an effort to find out. And all of those hours are wasted hours, which could be, you know, used for your physical health, your spiritual health, your emotional health, all of those things.
I totally agree, and that's actually how I end my show with it, is if you can go outside, please do, because it's better than being in front of a screen. So I am on the same page. That's actually the long dream for Kyla and I, is to be self-sustaining in a farm environment and really not being even involved with technology very much. So
yeah, well, we're self-sustaining here, and we don't have time. We have to take care of the gardens, we have to take care of the trees, we have a dog to look after, and then we have to look after ourselves, and then you know, it's a never-ending thing. But at least it keeps us moving, it keeps us healthy, and it keeps us focused on what we need and not creating. And that's the other thing, right? I stopped watching, oh my gosh, I stopped watching the news over 30 years ago. I stopped watching TV at least 10 years ago. And it's funny how I don't buy things, because I'm not constantly pushed to buy something, right? And so, because that's what ads are for, right? The ads are there to create a need for you to say, oh, I want that. But the question is always, do you need it? Any good advertising will make you want it, but do you need it? So, I mean, I've retired in 2016. And I've been doing this work full time. And a lot of people are like, so how can you make a living out of this? And I'm like, well, first of all, I work at it. I spend a lot of hours with clients and working, but I also don't spend what I'm making on frivolities and unnecessary things. So my spending is not as high because I don't have the needs for all these gadgets that they're selling out there. Like, we just changed one of our iPhone because it was an iPhone 7 and we can no longer do banking on it. So that's when we change. So it doesn't matter that they're up to 16 and I really don't care.
That's funny, because Kyla and I went out of our way to buy like the most off-brand phone. And I'm not going to promote anybody's phone product on my show, but this phone is better than my laptop, and it's not a name brand. It has more hard drive. I edit my show on it. Like it's insane, and it's nothing that anybody's trying to sell you.
Yeah.
So I totally get.
I think that we need to stop creating needs and out of our wants, right? We should be more focused on what is it that I need in this moment. And it's amazing because when you're in debt, it creates an additional stress in your life. Stress has a very low vibration. So this tends to keep you very low. Watching the news, if it's important, I guarantee you someone's going to tell you about it. You know what I mean? The news are rarely about good things, but what do you care if someone got killed in New Jersey? What can you do about it? Absolutely nothing. Now, I'm more in touch with the pulse of my local community, but, again, if something's going on in my community, someone will tell me about it. And if they think I can do something about it, they'll reach out, and I will be more than happy to participate or to help in any way that I can. And I think that's much more productive because you got to leave the space for you to be creative, right? The space for you to grow, the space for someone told me like they have a lot of clutter in their house and how does that affect their spiritual growth? I'm like, well, your growth needs space. So if there's no space for it, it can't grow. You're snuffing your own growth. So it's worth cleaning up the disorder and putting things back to orderly. And so you have this room to be creative. You have this room to welcome the new information, your intuitions and other things. If you're constantly being bothered by the disorder or things to do, you're never going to move forward. So I'm lucky. I get to talk with my main guides, right? My soul is much more wiser than just me, little me, Sonya here in 2025, right? So when I meditate, I'm able to access the information from up there and be guided. And one of the things they said to me is that you have too many things on the go. You got to finish a bunch of projects, and then we're going to, free up the space that you need for more. So I spent last year literally working on all these little projects that I had started but not quite finished yet. And I've been concluding a lot of businesses, concluding a lot of, exercise that I need to do and published one of my books. And it's unlocked a bunch of things because all these things were starting to weigh me down. I had too much on the go, right? So we need to be more Sorry.
That is very valuable information, especially in my own life. This is hilarious. Again, the synchronicity. We were literally talking last night about the fact, okay, we live in a single wide trailer. I'm not ashamed of it, but it is very cluttered because it's the middle of winter and everything gets stuck in the middle everywhere. And it's starting to get hard to function. And it's like, we should really do something about this. And I think this is why we're kind of stagnating. We're kind of stuck because we're stuck around our stuff. Right? Exactly. Like our stuff is everywhere. I'm surrounded by stuff right now and it drives me nuts, but there's nothing we can do about it, but maybe there is, right? It's a reorganization.
Yeah. And that's where you need to have creative solutions, right? And that's when it's worth it. You see, the internet is not a bad thing. It's just, it's full of distractions. So you got to stay focused. If I'm looking for something like ways to declutter my house, you can get a ton of videos. So you can watch, a few and get some ideas and say, oh, I can organize it this way, or I could put it that way. And I got a huge filing cabinet, so everything's organized. You ask me for something, I know exactly where it is. I don't have to look for it for hours, right? Men love my garage because all my tools are nicely put and you can find everything right away. And, and they come in there and they go, woo. And I'm like, yeah. And there's even room for the car in there, which is what a garage is supposed to be for, right? So if you can't walk in your garage or your garage is full of stuff, maybe you just have too much stuff. Right?
Very, very true.
Sometimes it's not a putting away thing, it's an organizational thing because you just have too much things. So you have to ask yourself, if I haven't used it in the past year, am I going to have it? Am I going to need this? You know, there's stuff that I use maybe 3 or 4 times a year, but every year, 3 or 4 times a year. So it's worth keeping. But if there's things that I'm not going to wear anymore, if I'm not going to use anymore, it could help someone else. So either we sell them or we give them away, or, you know, I don't need to hoard it. I don't need it. So
that makes sense. I want to circle back to karma.
yes.
In your video, you were talking about why don't we remember our karmic debt? I guess is the simplest way to ask the question I'm trying to get to.
Perhaps because if you would remember everything, you would be overwhelmed and you wouldn't know where to start. I think. When you're ready, and this is very true of not, you know, with karma and the laws of the universe, is that when you're ready and you make a commitment, I want this to change, the people will come along the way to show you how. So if you're not ready yet, even if someone would show it to you, you wouldn't pay attention to it because you don't see how this applies to you because you don't see it. And I think that the thing that people hate the most, me telling them, is take responsibility, and they hate that. But I was married to a narcissist, so it was a terrible marriage. But I said yes. There was no gun pointed to my head. And then I stayed true. He demolished my self-esteem, and I was afraid that I wouldn't make it on my own, which was ludicrous. But at the time, I felt that way. But again, I let my fear guide me, my decisions, rather than turning towards my power source, right? So when I finally left, I can't be mad at him that I stayed an extra 2 years than I should have. That's my choice. I stayed, right? So, and then, you know, people will say, well, I didn't choose to get molested. Not perceivably in this lifetime did you did not make that choice. But you did make that choice before you came because you want to break the silence, you want to break the cycles, and you wanted it to stop in that family. And you have generational karma in that family. So you came to try and break the cycle. So yes, it's still your choice and it's still your responsibility. Now you have a choice because I've seen both, right? You have the people who are able to thrive still, even though they've suffered terrible abuse when they were young, and the people that are completely given up. That's not, you can't blame the people for giving up. They just didn't have the support or the resources presented to them at the time. But what's beautiful is that it's never too late. So we can change it now. If you're ready now, I can help you now, right? So I think if you knew that, if I'm telling you this at 4 years old, so you're going to suffer terrible sexual abuse because you came here to break the chain of silence and to break this behavior, generational behavior in your family. Good luck with that. You know, how would you be able to survive with these, right? And if it's a generational karma, normally it's because you may have been the one that started it in that family 10 generations ago in your other incarnation. And so now you're taking responsibility in coming back and trying to break what you may have started 10 lives ago. Right? It's powerful because people are like, well, why do bad things happen to good people? I'm like, it's there's also this debt that you carry around from a past life that you know that you might have not been that good. But then again, when we start exploring and we start talking and we start going through their life experience, you realize that, well, they weren't always so nice as they claim to be, but they never made amends for the harm that they caused, and now it's bouncing back, it's coming back.
I totally get what you're saying, and I know we can't remember everything at once because I also know that's why we can't know everything at once because biologically we're not fit for it. But is there a way to recall your karmic debt or start to remember so the lessons come easier? Like, how do you get into healing unhealed karma?
All right. There's so many ways. Where do I start? The way karmic debt or karmic things will happen to you, first of all, usually will present a pattern in your life. So the first thing that every listener who's listening to this video need to do is you need to honestly search your life, your own life. Now, never mind anybody else, right? You have to look at your life and you have to see, who did I interact with? Was I good? Was I kind? Was I mean? Was I, what happened? Did I hold a grudge? Did I get angry? Did I break things? It's a huge piece of work that can take a month, if not 6 weeks to complete. And then you can start identifying patterns of things that keep coming back. So I'll give you an example. I got a brand new car. I'm super happy because I'm 21. I'm 21. I got this brand new car. Never had anything new in my life. This is my prized possession. And I am getting attached materialistically to this car. And my soul says, that's not going to happen. So someone backed into me. I blew my fuse. I yelled and swore at them. Remember, I was 21. That was a long time ago. But that's what I did. And the car got fixed. And he could have left and I wouldn't have known, it could have been a hit and run. But they stayed and told me they did it. So the next few weeks, someone else backs into me. And again, they called the police. They could have been a hit and run. I would have never known, but they called the police. I was there and I lost my shit. I'm just yelling and swearing and I'm telling her, the pedal there is like a brake pedal. You could have used it before you rammed into my car. And oh my gosh. And I was not nice and I was super mean. Okay. So then a third time happens. And we're talking like all within 6 months, right? It's not like it's years apart or anything. And it's always the same car. It's always on the same side. It's always the same story. But the third time, it's an old man, and he came knocking on the door, and I'm like, oh, well, we'll fill out the information, and we're exchanging information. His hand is really shaking something. Maybe he has Parkinson's or something. So I said, well, would you like me to fill out your part? It's okay, I'll do it. And then he didn't stop shaking, and I said, are you all right? Because, the last thing I want is for this man to have a heart attack right there at the kitchen. And he's like, well, I was so afraid you're going to yell at me. And then, bing, the light went on. And the lesson was, material things are not important. They can be replaced or repaired. Human beings, however, when you hurt them, the scar can stay a very long time. So no matter what they did, they own up to it. They pay for the repairs. You should be gracious and thank them for their honesty and, tell them that it's fine. Well, I learned my lesson, and therefore, let's touch on wood. It never happened again. That was over 30 years ago, right? And that's a karmic debt, a karmic lesson learned. So you let go of that, and you learn people are more important than material things. Material things don't matter, don't get attached. So that's one way in identifying those patterns that you can see, okay, there's something for me to learn there. Some lessons are some events or some incidents can carry much more than just one lesson or one karma relieving thing. It's hard to give everybody a how-to recipe because it's different for everybody. But the idea in the end is to learn to be compassionate individual that are loving and caring, and that we are supportive and not diminutive or destructive.
I think that's perfectly said. And you also touched on something that I've been looking a lot into, and I've said this example on my show before. Like, there was a stretch there with my health issues and her car accident and then another health issue and then this and that. It was getting really hard to keep my chin up. And the one day something just shifted in me and I was like, well, at least the tires on the truck aren't flat. And I said it sarcastically. I'm like, you know what? The tires on the truck aren't flat and they're $400 a piece. Right. And you alluded to how much gratitude is important and how it shifts your life. And I would love if you could explain what you were speaking about there, because it's absolutely true.
Well, imagine, right? The universe, although we find it hard to believe, the universe is able to, because it's connected to us, right? It's able to know what we think, feel all the time. It's outside of bond of understanding or We can't do that, but Creator can. And Creator is listening to you when you talk or the way you act. And it says, oh, so you're grateful for your tires. All right, well, you know, tires are attached to the truck. Are you grateful for the truck? Right? And then it says, okay, well, we'll keep your truck working for you since you like it. That's fine. But the person that says, oh, I'm poor, I'm always in debt, I'll never get out of debt. Oh, you never want to get out of your debts. That's no problem. We'll keep them coming. But then there's the person who says, I am so grateful that I have everything that I need and that I eat every day and the food is healthy food every day. And it's easy to make a list of gratitude, honestly. So the universe says, oh, you want more healthy food? No problem. We'll make your gardens grow. And I'm grateful for the support and the friends that I have, and they believe in me, and we're moving forward. Okay, we'll send you more people like that, since that seems to be what you like. So you have to listen to yourself talk and say, what do I spend my day on? I had someone ask me about manifestation, which is one of the laws of karma, right? And they're like, okay, so why doesn't it work for me? I'm like, so what do you do to manifest? What are you manifesting? Money. All right, fine. There's so much more than money, but let's focus on money, sure. And he's like, yeah, so every morning I spend 15 minutes thinking, yeah, I'm grateful for money. I'm grateful for money. Money is great. I want more money. Okay. And I said, what do you do the rest of the day? I said, what do you mean? Well, turns out that on the drive, he's complaining about the price of gas, and he's complaining he's going to have to spend money on that. Then he gets to work and someone tells him that they're collecting $20. Oh, yeah, of course. Now I got to give money. And I'm here working my ass off, and all I do is just give money to everybody. And then at lunchtime, the wife calls and says the kids are going to need braces. And he's like, well, the dentist is getting a vacation this year, but not me, right? So by the time you get home, you've spent 15 minutes out of your 12 hours manifesting money, and you spend the other 11 hours and 45 minutes complaining about money, complaining about debt, complaining about expenses, complaining. So that's why you're not manifesting what you want. The other thing, too, is I once asked my son, he's like, well, why can't I not manifest $1 million? I said, well, what do you want it for? I said, well, I want to buy this big sports car. I'm going to go on the tour. I'm going to buy a private jet to go around the world. I'm like, you're not going to get $1 million. Now, if you were to say to me, out of my $1 million, I'll buy a reasonable car, but also while I'm traveling, I'm going to volunteer my time to build wells in Africa and things like that. Those will manifest. And you may not actually need $1 million, right? You may just need an opportunity, which is something that I found is I don't need as much money as I should, I guess, because I get given things. I get invited. I get things paid, right? And so, like most of my traveling, I'm invited to other countries to give speeches or do conferences. And so, I get to see the world, but it's not my pocket. I needed a new table and a dining chairs. It was given to me. So it's if you can understand this concept of, instead of hoarding everything for yourself, give it back when you don't need it, then other people who don't need it anymore will give to you. And it's not necessarily the same person, right? But as you realize we're all connecting, well, I give to this person, I can give to this person what they need, and someone else will give me what I need. Because I'm in that headspace, I'm in that energy.
I get that, because when I started coming into my spiritual understanding or awakening, or however you want to phrase it, it was damn near a nervous breakdown. I'll be honest. I could not function in normal society for about 11 months. We never missed a payment in rent. We never missed a payment on the truck. We never, because we both knew I was doing what was right, and something would happen. I did create some digital content, but it always seemed like, oh, crap, we're going to be short on this. And somebody would want a 30-second intro made and pay me almost the exact amount that we needed to make that bill, right? I quit my best paying job ever for 11 months and then walked right back into it because I needed a break.
And that for some will be called the dark night of the soul. Now, have you heard of that term?
The dark night of the soul, yes.
So the dark night of the soul usually comes as a precursor to a huge opening on a spiritual awareness or spiritual growth. It comes at a point in your life to tell you this isn't working. So we have to stop going in that direction. But sometimes reorienting yourself cannot be done just, quickly. You need to focus and find out, okay, so why doesn't this work? Where am I going wrong? And where do I have to backtrack to? And some people see this backtracking as a bad thing. And I'm like, why is it a bad thing? You realize you're on the wrong path. Well, I do a lot of hikes, and if you go into an impasse and there's no place to go, well, I have the choice to jump off a cliff to try and reach the other side, or I'm just going to back down, go around, and catch that bridge that I missed. And it's going to be nice and easy. I'm just going to catch the bridge that's already there for me to cross, and I'll get to the other side. Now, it's a bit of a detour, sure, but it's not the end of the world. Why would I try to build a new bridge to get across, or take chances in killing myself trying to get across when there's a perfectly good bridge? I just got to back out a bit and find my way again, right? So it's all a matter of, we live in a society where everything happens so quickly and rapidly that it's difficult for people to wait, right? And I've had people offer me 10 grand to do their spiritual work for them. And I'm like, how do you figure this is going to work? There's nothing I can do. I do my work. You have to do yours. Yeah, but I don't want to. Well, that's okay. You don't have to. No one's forcing you to. You're just not going to move forward, but that's not how it's done, right? So, yeah, I've had some nice money offer to do the work for other people. And I'm like, it's just not going to happen.
That is bizarre. I know we have kind of skipped all over the place, and I wasn't sure off the start of the show. Do you actually have the list of the 12 laws with you, or no?
Yeah, I do. I can enumerate them for you. So there's
just because in case anybody wants to go look for all of them, because I've just been having such a wonderful time. We kind of didn't have a focus, and that's great because I love our conversations.
Well, I think that, you know what, the way I see it is that whoever's listening, this is what they needed to hear. And we were talking, we started with the evolution of the soul, and the soul, it was created, but it's evolving, right? And now in the time and place where we are, we have to understand that there's so many things to drive us away from our spiritual goal, our spiritual awakeness, and our consciousness. So I don't think we wasted our time in the last hour. I think that it's telling people, we were all created at the same time. And those who are called old souls are just souls that had a lot of reincarnation, as opposed to those that did not. That's the only difference. We were all created at the same time. And we're evolving from life to life with those life lessons that we're trying to learn. And when we screw up, karma is there to give us another chance to get it right next time. So, and that's why it's important that understanding karma is not a punishment. And if things are happening in your life that are not great and not what you expected, you have to stop looking at it at face value and start digging behind it. Like this burnout that you had to go off work for 11 months has allowed you to be more awakened to certain aspects in your life where you didn't think of before. It allowed to give you time to process that new information and install this in your day-to-day life. So it's still another way around talking about what we're supposed to talk tonight, right? But the great law is the law of cause and effect. Okay, I know they have numbers, but they're not, one is not more important than the other. So they're all important, all 12 of them, right? So the law of cause and effect is that if you do something, there'll be an effect later on. So if you cheat someone and you go to jail, you can't complain, you cheated or you stole, right? That's the simplest. Well, it's the same way in the sense that if you're mean to someone and someone is mean to you, you have to understand what comes around goes around, right? Or if you're mad at everybody, you can't expect a favor down the line, right? So if no one's there to help you, you got to ask yourself, geez, why doesn't anybody want to help me? And it could be two things. It could be because, you're not nice and no one wants anything to do with you, or you're not believing in yourself and you're surrounding yourself with people who take advantage of you. And so they're just there to take, and not to give back. So either way, there's a lesson in there for you, but you can only learn that lesson once you do a little bit of introspection and a little bit of soul searching. Yes? Okay. Yeah. So the law of creation, you can create everything in your life with your thoughts. Your first action is your thoughts. So if your life is crap, you got to start examining, what am I thinking about all the time? So I gave you the example of the guy who complains about money all day in his head or out loud. Well, you're telling the universe, I have that, I have problems. Okay. And they'll just send you more of what you're expressing. So you should start saying, I love my life, I love my wife, I love my job, I'm happy, and having this grateful part and being more focused on what it is that you actually want and not what you don't. And interestingly enough, the best way that it works is to say thank you for something as if you already received it, because it's on its way. Right? So what I mean is, thank you for the money to pay my credit card. I'm grateful for that. I didn't have the money when I said thank you, but the money still came in and I paid my credit card. Because I have enough faith that if I'm saying to Creator, geez, thank you for this, thank you for that, he's like, oh, wait, shit, hang on. All right, here it is. Okay, sending it to you now. Right? And that's how it works. And we have to get out of ego, because I've had someone that said, I'm pissed off because I don't get the answers when I ask for them. And I want an answer when I ask a question. I said, so hang on a second. You want Creator, God, universe of all things that takes care of 7 billion people just on Earth alone to stop everything he's doing to answer you right this second. Like, that's not how it works. Be open, ask your question, and wait for the synchronicity or the message to come to you to get your answer. Stop being like the navel of the world and think that everything is owed to you this very second. But that's how they live their lives, right? So the law of creation is paying attention to your thoughts and actually aligning. So I know Spinja said, we're looking for this acreage. Okay, well, start manifesting. What does it look like? How big is it? How many rooms to house? What's important? Like before, and I've done this for multiple houses by now. Before I know I'm moving, I know that I need a new home, and I sat down. I'm like, okay, so I want a garage, I want a paved driveway, I want an acreage, I want to be by the river, I want this, I want that. We put 42 things down the list, and then at the end we add or better. Well, it turns out that I even got the kitchen of my dreams, and I even got better water than I expected. It was magnificent, right? But it took me, and to me it's long. It took 6 weeks. So, but it took 6 weeks, and we found it. We had it. It's ours, right? So, we actually do this exercise in the Akashic Record class because I'm teaching people how to change this way of thinking, right? And or reorganizing your thoughts around not the lack or the scarcity, but why do you need this for? Can you justify asking for this, right? So we asked for a second building so that we could have inviting guests over and have more rooms, and so we didn't ask for it to be flashy. We didn't ask for it to be how can I say this, to brag about it, I have a big house or whatever, right? So every part of this land and this house serves a purpose. And not just once a year. We use it and the purpose behind it. And so we were given exactly what we needed. So that's the law of creation. Then comes I guess it's the law of humility. So again, leaving your ego at the door, right? And you're no better than anybody else. I learned that from my dad, who said, you should, and my dad was born in 1925, right? So he's a very old generation. And he was saying, it doesn't matter that you have to pay respect to a lawyer or a doctor. You also got to pay respect to the guy who's picking up your garbage, because trust me, if the garbage doesn't get picked up, you're going to really miss those guys. Or the mechanic who makes your car running that gets you from A to B without having to worry, right? So and the waitress at the restaurant that, you know, is sweating bullets and is dragging her foot all over the place to feed all these people. You have to show appreciation to every single human you come across. And I think that's your law of humility, right? You're no better than anybody else. We're all equal. We all deserve the same amount of love, the same amount of respect, and the same amount of compassion. So that, again, would change the world if everybody would act this way, right? Then there's a law of growth, which you are meant to come on earth to grow. You're meant to take responsibility, which is the next law. They all kind of, you know, roll into each other, right? But you are meant to spiritually grow. Your experience is, although you're in a human body, the human body is only there to allow you to develop trust, to allow you to develop honesty, to allow you, right? It's giving you the opportunity to learn these important lessons, but you are supposed to be learning these important lessons. And then there's the law of responsibility. So you have to ask yourself, like for me, you know, I was like, okay, well, I should have said no when he asked me to marry him. At the very least, I should have said, let me think about it, right? I got carried away in the big thing, and I knew it wasn't quite right, but I went with it anyway. Who else am I going to blame but myself? But you know, I was 25, I was young, and I had dumb subconscious belief that I got rid of since. And that's the other thing. I think that, you know, you were asking, how can we heal this karma thing? You need to examine your beliefs. You need to, everybody out there, not just you, Dawn, but we need to examine our beliefs, because and they could be, you know, at first these are the things you say, or your dad's been saying, or your grandma, or your mom, you know, like, oh yeah, my mom used to say that, right? So I'm going to put you on the spot, Dawn. Do you have an example of something that you would hear your mom, grandpa, dad, whatever, say all the time? Go ahead. Yeah. Give me one.
An old saying, basically work hard for your money. Like my stepdad, the man who raised me, worked himself to death. He was dead at 48. And, you know, you got to go work every day and work hard for your money. Was like, that was his.
Right. So that was the same one as my dad, right? You have to work hard for your money. And so one day I'm having, and this is why I love my dad so much. We'd sit down right outside on the porch, and I say, Dad, why do you say that? He's like, because he says, thieves have it easy, but they didn't earn it. You have to earn it. I said, okay, but does it have to be hard? So what you're saying really is that I have to do an honest work. I have to come by it honestly. He's like, yeah. Well, I said, then it doesn't have to be hard, Dad, is it? And he looked at me and he's like, well, I guess not. But, you know, it's a belief that I needed to change. It doesn't have to be hard, and I don't have to kill myself at it. It can be fun, it can be easy, and it could be nurturing, and it could, you know, fill my passion and make me happy, but I have to die doing it. So there's many, many sayings like, oh, we're born for a small piece of bread, which means you're born to be poor. Well, people come to me and they're like, I'm tired of being poor. Well, we need to undo this screwed belief that you grew up with, that you're born to be poor. So everybody's got all of these beliefs inside of them. And it could be something that was repeated over and over again. Like, oh, you'll never amount to anything in your life. You're so stupid, you'll never learn anything new. Okay, well, these things could have been repeated to the point where you actually think, well, I'm stupid, so I'm not going to try because I can't learn anyway. Or it could be a one event from someone. I remember an example is I love singing. And I was in this choir in grade 5. And the woman in charge of the choir didn't like me for some reason. And she said, you sing horribly. You don't belong here. Go back to class. So I took it for cash at the bank. I'm a horrible singer. And it's not until years later that I was in church and I was singing because I enjoyed. It's in church. It's okay if I don't do it great. And the choir master came to me and he's like, I'd like you to join the choir. I said, oh, you must have the wrong person because I'm a terrible singer. He's like, no. He says, you're actually a great singer. I said, I don't understand. He's like, you're a tenor. He says, obviously, we can't ask you to be a soprano. We can't ask you to be an alto, but you're a great tenor voice. So I'd really like you to join the choir. And it's like, wow. And I spent 20 years not singing in public because I thought I was a horrible singer. But this belief, it just took one time to stick to me, right? So you need to start reevaluating all these beliefs that you're operating by and asking yourself, do I still need to believe in that old thing? Does this even apply to me? And then start changing those things. Now, it's a lot of work to do by yourself, but that's something I help people work with, right? That's something that because I'm good at it, I can spot them. But yeah. So the next one would be your law of connection. And again, you thought we weren't talking about laws of karma. We were, but we just didn't say this is the next law. But it's where everybody is connected, right? Everybody has a luminous cord that ties us to each other. And so we're in it together. So if someone is poor, someone is hungry, someone is suffering, part of our energy goes there without us actually realizing it. So keeping our vibration high is one thing, but we also have a responsibility through this connection to raise everybody around us and allow them all to be at their full potential. That's what true empowerment is. The worst thing you can do for someone is enable their behavior, right? So it's, the big saying, don't give a fish to a person, teach them how to fish. They're hungry, they want the fish now, right? But if you give them the fish, they'll be hungry again tomorrow. So my job is really to help people learn how to do this so that they don't need me. They can do this on their own once they actually figure out how it works. So then they get back their power. They're not depending on anybody else to do anything for them. They can conscientiously look after themselves. The law of focus, and we talked about how distracted everybody is. The law of focus is to you keep your attention on your goals, and nothing should be a distraction. Even when you're doing fun things, like for me, it's taking a walk in the mountain and go hiking or kayaking. My focus always is on connecting to nature, connecting to spirit, right? So you have to, I'm going to show it to you. I have my little board in front of me. I actually write down my goals for every month and everything I want to achieve. So every month I know, okay, this is what I want to work on. This is what I need to get done. And I keep my focus that way. So it's not just, your resolution in the new year, I'll do this with nothing to back it up, right? So I have objectives to reach every month. I have work that can be done every month. And life happens. Like I said, I lost my mom. So that threw me for a loop. So obviously I'm a little behind, but there's a reason. It's not because I lost my focus. It's not because I went on a binge drinking or partying and I forgot all about it. It's because a big event that I hadn't planned for happened, right? Which is okay. But you gotta return your focus to where it's at. So you need tools to assist you to remember, this is where I'm going. This is my direction I'm heading. Then the law of giving and hospitality. Well, that one is a little bit what I explained. If you have surplus, to give it away. There's no point in hoarding anything. The problem we have in this day and age is because of the hoarding. If everybody just took what they need, there'd be enough for everyone, right? But we keep hoarding things out of fear, out of scarcity. And that's the issue. You have to get rid of your fear. So you have to detach from things. And then someone said to me, yeah, but what if after I give it away, I actually need it? I said, then whoever you gave it away, you can ask them to borrow it for the day. So I just want it for today. Would it be all right for me to borrow it? I mean, I have tools, but I go to the rental place. I just need it for one day. Instead of buying it and storing it, I just rent it and use it for what I need and put it back, right? We got to think differently because we've been taught to consume. This consumerism is what's killing us, right? So we really need to shift our mannerism on how we think and act on accumulation and on spending. So, and you know, I remember my dad bought a fridge. It wouldn't die. That thing lasted 60 years. He died before the fridge died. You know, this is crazy. Now you're lucky if you get 5 years out of a modern fridge, right? They're not built to last. So it's important that we don't fall into this always consuming things, because we're creating so much garbage. Don't get me go there. But we need more conscientiousness about what we do and how we do it. The giving is also give what you want to receive. Now, we hear that all the time, but if you want to have love and understanding, you have to give it. If you have to give it, it's usually to someone who's not very understanding, or otherwise it wouldn't be a real challenge, right? So I work with people, and they're more on the peripheral, if you will. I have people who are following me closely, who are taking classes, who are growing. It's magnificent, and I love it. But then there's other people more on the outskirts, kind of curious, wondering what is this about, but they haven't plunged in yet. And their behaviors demonstrate this lack of, you know, awakeness or consciousness. And it's up to me to stick with it and to be kind and to be patient, because that's what they need. Yeah, then there's the law of here and now, meaning, I just saw a post on Facebook yesterday, which applies directly to that. The past is already gone and the future doesn't exist, right? So if you're living in the past, you're not living in the here and now, and if you're living in the future, you're living in your imagination. You need to be here. Now, to go back to manifesting, you can still say, I want this, I want a farm, I want this, and that. But I appreciate the fact that I have a roof over my head and that my dogs are healthy and my car is running. But I also welcome this new piece of land because we're going to do this, and that, right? That's okay. But you're not living in the future. You're in the here and now, slowly, step by step, making your way there. And it doesn't have to be slow. It could be very quick. Some people, I work with people who are physically ill, not just emotionally or mentally needing help. And they're like, so how long is it going to take for me to heal? I said, I don't know. How long do you want it to take? And they're looking at me like, it's not up to me. I said, yes, it is. Because it's your beliefs that are going to create what's happening in your body. So if you believe by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, everything is fixed, by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, everything will be fixed. And they're like, really? I'm like, yes, really. I had a mammogram, and there was apparently a big shadow in there. And I had 1 week before they retested me again, or a little less than 1 week. And I went and got the message from what that means. And then I learned what I needed to learn. I acknowledged what I needed to acknowledge. And I went back and they couldn't find anything. It was gone. So I didn't need chemo. I didn't need surgery. I just needed to listen to my body. What's the message my body is saying right now? And there's lots of books out there that will give you messages from your body. Again, I don't want to promote anything specifically, but there's lots of books about the your body talks to you, or the messages from your body. If you look that up, you'll see many authors, and it's fantastic because that's what the message. That's all they are, messages. Hey, you're not paying attention to this. Hey, you need to be aware of that. Now we're going to bring it closer in your physical field, so you're going to finally pay attention to it. Just like the burnout. Burnout is your soul telling you you're on the wrong path, dude. We're gonna run out of time. You got stuff to do. You gotta get back in line here. Okay, so we're gonna stop you dead in your tracks. We're gonna force you to think and come back, and then we're gonna give you back the energy and what you need to be in the right direction. Yes. And then there's
absolutely what happened.
Yeah. And then and I'm sorry, everybody. I'm talking so much. I'm not seeing all the comments. Are you watching the comments, Don?
Yeah, they're actually really resonating with what you're saying, and then they've kind of broke up into their own conversations about how Angel Wings was saying something about her dad being very rude about her singing, and that she's clearing out her stuff. So all of this is really helpful. Like, people are seeing the steps that they're taking, where they can go. So
awesome. Then there's a lot of change. Nothing is static. You're always in movement. And so that's why it's so important to know in which direction are you going to go, because it won't take long before you fall off a track and, you know, derail yourself if you're not always staying focused and know the direction you're heading in. Not everybody needs to become a Gandhi or, you know, a pope or something, right? However, we all have the power to be an influence in our community. By our actions, by our words, we are leaders. And we need to be the one showing people how to act. So it's not about noticing, oh, look at a stupid guy couldn't open the door. You run and open the door then. And you just say, it's okay. If you can do it, I'll do it, right? You have to let go of all these judgments. And maybe he didn't open the door because his head just not into it right now because he just lost his job and he's walking around in the fog. You know what I mean? But we're so quick to judge another person's behavior without knowing the full story, without knowing where they're coming from. Like, I had a friend who lost like 150 pounds. And so she started walking on a school track. And someone running by her said, well, go home. You don't belong here, fatty. Why would you say that? She's put a lot of effort in losing 150 pounds. She's trying to lose the last 50 pounds, and she wants to walk where she feels safe on a track that's, you know, and so we need to be more welcoming and you know, asking us, we don't know where this person has been. We don't know what it's been through. So we need to come out of respect and honoring wherever they are is where they are. And we're going to love them unconditionally for who they are at this moment. So that's I think, a very important lesson. And that would be the law of patience and reward, right? So you have to constantly, you know, I said the story about this lady who wanted her answer and she wants it now. And oh my God, she threw a huge fit because she didn't get it. And sometimes you have to be patient for everything to fall into place so that everything is beautifully wrapped for you and you can just unwrap it and it's all perfect. So one of the questions I asked about 10 years ago was, how can I reach more people? Because my goal, my soul's purpose is to literally teach people this stuff. Yes. So and I trust that the universe is going to send me the money that I need when I need it. So it's okay for me to give free stuff away. I don't care, right? And but I'm running out of, you know, I'm not too sure how to go about this. And I don't have $1 million to pay a firm to find all these answers for me. So I'm trusting, you know, universe is going to give me the answers. And someone came up to me and say, so what's your podcast? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You got the wrong person. I don't do podcasts. And then a few days later, another person comes up to me and says, so, hey, I heard you're doing podcasts. So what is it? And I'm like, okay. Well, I said, we're in the process of putting one together. I'll let you know when, you know, we got it running. So my question now transforms. Okay, so now it's obvious you want me to do podcasts, but I have no idea how this works. I don't want to go to school for 3 months to learn how to do podcasts. Can you just make it easy for me? And a week later, I met someone who again asks me, so do you podcast? No, I don't. I don't know how it works, but I'm interested in learning. Do you know? Oh, she's like, I'll show you. It's really easy. 5 minutes later, I had my podcast. Right? So this is the law of patience and reward. If you're doing what's good and you're on the right path and you're wholly devoted to what you're doing, then you'll be as encouraged and rewarded as the effort that you put in. So the more effort you put in, the bigger the reward. So the more loving you are, the more love you get. The more kind you are, the more kindness you get. And it's not, I can't say it's equal because I always feel I receive more than what I give. So I give more because I feel like I should give more because I've received so much. And then I get even more. And so it's amplifying this synergy of energy. If you do this exercise with a loved one, you give energy to someone and it's love energy, right? So you, for those people who don't have any healing modalities, you just picture from your heart this current of light that flows to the person you love. And then the person you love returns a light to you. And as you're doing this, your energy amplifies because you're giving energy. You are gifted by universe more energy. So you're never depleted. which is fantastic because you always have more to give. Yeah.
That's really cool.
The last one would be the law of significance and inspiration. And so in order to receive inspiration, you need to have space for it. If you're always on your phone or watching TV, or you always have music playing, you can't hear that little voice trying to inspire you or guide you, right? And if you're always looking down at your phone, well, you can't see the person that you would meet, that would talk to you and give you the answer, like for me, the podcast, right? So we need to be creating a space where you say, okay, no phone, no distraction. And I personally find a lot of inspiration when I'm being creative. So yeah. So I encourage people to be very creative. Now, my students say, well, it's easy for you, you're a great artist. I'm like, it doesn't have to be complicated or a super work of art. It could be just being gardening, but gardening, not listening to things. Like I hear people, oh, the minute I have a break, I put on my headphones and I listen to a podcast. Right, but that never leaves any room for inspiration. That never leaves any room for you to get, a message or an inkling, or right. So if you have a lot of things on the table to do, before you want to go any further, the lesson I learned last year is finish what you're doing. Just take the time, and if it takes all year, like it took me, I'm not even finished, so it'll take me more than a year to finish. But finish what you already started before engaging in something new and some piling more on your plate that's already full, and so be more respectful of yourself, of your time, of your energy, and go from there.
I love that, and it actually really makes a lot of sense for some of the things that have been going on in my own personal life. And I want to thank you for breaking it down numerically there. I know our conversation earlier was some great examples of it, but I call him a brain monkey. He just takes over sometimes and I talk about whatever. Right. But no, we were giving some very valid points, but I'm happy that you were able to break it down so if people want to look into this for themselves further, they can. What do you have coming up? What courses are you doing? Do you want to tell everybody where to get your books and what's going on with Sonya?
A lot, but like I said, I'm behind on my podcast, but this year we're doing a series on authors who through their writing were trying to teach us spiritual things, but would have been called heretics and probably excommunicated from the church or even imprisoned or decapitated. And we're going over the messages they were trying. So we're going to go explore Alice in Wonderland, Narnia. We're going to explore. We're also going to talk about how you can see the worst of humanity with George Orwell, or the best of humanity with Star Trek. Right. So we're going to explore all these different aspects of literature. And I figured, well, in this day and age, I should include someone on video or something. But these authors made effective change in society and in our lives, in our belief system. And the idea was to guide us through the uncertainties of what you were asking, right? So like we're talking about Dante's, and Dante talks about hell and purgatory and what heaven looks like. But he's basically telling us that the way we live our lives on earth could be hell. That's what hell is when you're gossiping and you're telling lies and so it's a very interesting way to show how that's hell. So you need to change your behavior if you don't want to end up in hell, but you're in hell already. So that's a bit what I'm going to be presenting this year. But as for classes, I have the energy and chakra class that's coming up in March, and I have Reiki classes throughout the year at regular intervals. So people can sign up for that. I'm taking a group to Japan in May. So I'm really... And we have multiple retreats during the year. So I have a business retreat in April that I give. And then in June, it's, hang on. We're in June already for me. But there'll be a shamanic retreat, and I'm taking a group to Shasta in July as well. So lots of traveling.
Would be cool.
Yeah, lots of traveling, lots of fun things, and lots of action. And I'll be in Montreal back in October again.
And I'm going to say something so it's on record, so somebody has to hold me to it. When you have your Akashic Records course, I'm taking it.
Okay, well, let me check. When is that? Hang on, let me check on my website. I'll tell everybody, because I've actually been telling one of my students that she needs to take Akashic Record, and to a certain degree, she thought I was just trying to sell her something, right? And she's like, "Well, it doesn't talk to me," and I'm like, "It's fine, but it's a basic class, because the way things are organized at the center is that you have it's called the Wisdom School of Spiritual Transformation. So the whole idea is to take anybody who walks in the door and teach them and help them grow and help them find answers for themselves and empower them. And it's divided in 3 different levels. And the Akashic Record is a basic level entry class. So, and she finally took it when I was there in Quebec in February. And now she's telling everybody needs to take this class. I'm like, well, that is what I've been saying, right? They're the basic of the reason why you're on Earth. And if you can understand that, your life on Earth gets a lot easier, because then you finally know how things work, right? Because outside of the 12th law of karma, we also have the 12th law of the universe. So it's, it's like going to a country and you're bringing drugs and it's illegal there and you get arrested and you're like, but I didn't know. But there's still a consequence to your action. You should have figured it out before you came here with your drugs, right? Well, it's a bit the same. We need to figure out what the laws are so we can abide by them and be rewarded for our good behavior that aligns with the universe's will, rather than, always suffering the consequences of poor actions. So in Drumheller, the next one is April 26th, 27th. April 26th, 27th is Akashic Record weekend. And we're going ahead with that. We already have people signed up for it, so it's good.
Okay, well, I'm in.
You're in. All right. Well, there you go. Yeah. So anybody who's curious about the program, they can just log into my thank you. They can log into the website and look at the program. And I made it. Some people will try to sell you something for $5,000, and I think that's unfair, right? Because I want everybody to have access. So you're going at your own speed, and whenever your finances are good for it. I'm cheap. I am actually cheap. I'm pretty cheap as far as these kind of things go, because normally their going rate is about $300 a day, and I only charge $350 for the weekend. So I think I'm affordable in that sense. But it's built so that you take Reiki first or you take Akashic first. It doesn't matter, because eventually you start making all the dots in the connection and you're like, oh my God, I can see it now, right? And it's evolve at your own rhythm.
I totally dig what you're doing, and I come out on my show several times, and because I get kind of pissed about people that are into the pay-to-play gatekeeping nonsense, and I think what you're doing is a fair price for the effort that you've put into it. You're not asking for people to buy you a new Porsche. You're asking to be compensated for your energy that you put in. I totally respect that.
Well, if I could hug and kiss the guy for the hydro, I would, but unfortunately they do want money. So I'm trying my best. I'm trying to be reasonable, but at the same time, this is how I make a living. So.
Yeah. Do you want to tell everybody your socials and where to get a hold of you, other than your website that's been going all show at sonyaroy.com?
But I have Facebook, I have X, I have YouTube, I have Instagram, and I have podcasts. But the easiest way to get your way there is to just log into the website, and they're all at the top of the page. So that I find, instead of searching for me for YouTube for a half an hour, just go to my site, click YouTube. It takes there directly to the videos, and it's the easiest way.
Yeah, and when you get to the website and you're done looking around, scroll down, find her talks, and pay attention, because holy shit. That's the best way I can explain it. I want to thank you so much for your time tonight, Sonya. It's been another amazing conversation, and I think we got a lot of good information out for the people to listen to, so thank you for that.
Well, I'm always here, and then again, like you're saying, right? I created over 60 podcasts, and they're not about selling you anything. They're about informing and giving basic information so that, you know, even people who can't afford my classes can at least get a basic understanding and try to work their way on their own until they can come to a class, kind of thing. So
That's amazing. You're doing great work, Sonya. Thank you.
well, you're welcome. So thank you for everybody for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. And everybody in the audience and in the chat, thank you for participating and watching and listening. And like I always say, if you can go outside, please do, because it's a lot better than being in front of a screen. Bye.